fall color.
How are they doing? Up in Canada. I heard they were all having that issue with this. And it's supposed to be warm this year. Most trips do the same day. Maybe. Yep, that's pretty. Pretty, pretty. Got the little cows over there. Pretty funny looking. Yeah. See, I would love to. Or Yellowstone.
All kinds of color leaves. Red and yellow and orange and purple. Purple leaves even.
Oh, I thought you were talking about these up here.
No.
I saw bears. Yeah. I saw those in Yosemite too. Now, James, but you have to really go hiking. No, I was just off the highway. Well, that's good.
That one house, the yellow house in the backyard on the river.
The small
Whatever's for sale.
Yeah. Like I didn't know. You just don't know.
Yeah.
Antelope. I heard that the Church of Christ is still serving 3 meals a day to 150 people.
Came through, and they actually were a pretty active small town. They had a church, they had a grocery store. Nowadays, they're a recreation community. Two of the most fun recreations in this area are here in Reliance. You have some good rafting of the Hiawasee River and excellent trout fishing.
Should we ever try that? Maybe when we turn 60.
We have 2 rafting facilities here in Reliance. We have Webb Brothers Grocery and we have Hiawasee Outfitters. We'll see both of them here in just a moment. But you'll also see our siding up here where we have one of our locomotives parked. That's the locomotive we normally use on the left. But it was misbehaving last week, so it's in timeout. We'll just say it's sitting on the side track. It's in timeout. And we also have some of our track equipment parked there on that side. Now, if you look across the river, you see an old 2-story farmhouse on the side of that mountain. That is the original Webb family farm place. The Webb family's been here for many, many years. And back in the 1930s, 2 of the Webb brothers started a grocery store. And it's just ahead of us. The little white grocery store you'll see across the river with the Texaco sign, that's Webb Brothers Grocery. They're also one of our rafting facilities. But now coming up on the left side, you're going to see a house that's very, very close to the tracks. That is the watchman's house. That house was built by the railroad for the watchman, and he had the most important job in the community for the railroad. It was his job to keep the bridge from burning up. You see, the old steam locomotives had a bad habit of shooting cinders, hot cinders out of the smokestack, or dropping hot embers or coals out of their firebox. So his job was to come out of his house, grab 2 buckets of water, and walk all the way across the original wooden bridge, dousing any hot coals or small fires the locomotive may have started. So as soon as we clear this intersection that Mr. Hunt is warning about there, car 1, look to your left, you'll see the old watchman's house right there. It's got that rock foundation and the old Reliance Depot sign. Car number 2, we're coming up on it now on the left. The old bridge tender's house or watchman's house.
I let him do it. He went down and I thought he had not.
See how close to the tracks it is. Car number 3, look to your left. There's the old watchman's house. Cars 4 and 5, keep an eye out for it on your left. Everybody else, look across the river. And that little white grocery store you see there, that is Webb Brothers Grocery. They have a boat ramp, so they'll take you upriver about 5 miles, drop you off at the boat ramp upriver, and you can float gently down the Hiawasee to their boat ramp or a nice enjoyable rafting trip. Now also coming up on the right side, if you look across the river, you'll see the old Union Church. Well, it was kind of more of a community building at one point. It was also the Masonic Lodge, the local Masonic Lodge. And briefly, it was a school. Now, when it was a school, it was only grades 1 through 7. You didn't have to go to the 8th grade. You had to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also on the right side, just on the other side of the
What's
river,
that?
is a public boat ramp. If you can get somebody to drop you off upriver,
Right.
you can float back down here and take out at the public boat ramp, or coming up on the left, on the other side of the river, is our friends at Hiawasee Outfitters. Now, both Hiawasee Outfitters and Webb Brothers Grocery will drive you about 5 miles up in their buses, drop you off, and let you float gently down the Hiawasee River. Now, the Hiawasee is an excellent family river. It's not wild and dangerous like the Ocoee. We don't have any rapids named Grumpy around here. But let me warn you about the biggest hazard of the Hiawasee River. I don't care if it's 102 degrees outside, that water stays cold all the time, every day of the summertime. And if you fall in, it's your own fault. You've had to try to fall in. Well, let me warn you before you do, that water's cold. Very rarely gets above 50 to 55 degrees water temperature.
That would be.
See, we're getting up there. These trees have lost the leaves.
All right, friends, Hiawasee Outfitters also have a campground and cabins. And our friends at Webb Brothers, they own the old Watchman's house. You can rent a room in the house or rent the whole house for a big family gathering. So maybe next summer you can come down and spend a very nice, relaxing weekend here in Reliance. You can raft the river one day and ride the good old Hiawasee train the next. Either camping out or staying in the cabins.
Yeah,
It's a good idea.
yeah, pretty place.
Put it on the list.
All right, just a few minutes. Coming up on the right side will be our first ghost town, the old ghost town of Probst, Tennessee. Now, we call them ghost towns not because we've ever seen any ghosts there, but because they used to be big towns, and now there's nothing there. Nothing's left. Everything's gone. We'll tell you all about Probst in just a few moments when we get there.
Oh, we got the water. There we go.
That's pretty.
Very close.
Now, with the rafters have retreated for the year, it's very probable we'll see some of our bald eagles today. We did have a bald eagle sighting, I think, Thursday, yesterday, or maybe it was last week. But they're out there. They are not native to the river. They were brought in the 1970s and 80s when they were on the endangered species list. And they have flourished very well, adapted very well to river life along the Hiawasee. So if you see a bald eagle, let out a shout. Tell everybody in your car where it's at. If I see it, I'll announce it over the intercom.
Really? Wow.
Huh. Wow.
That would be a cool video. I'd love to see that. Disappear completely underwater.
Took him to a tree and ate him. Did it twice, actually.
Wow. That's a cool video. Oh, you people. Look at there. That's where you don't want to stick your head out.
Yeah, last week this was perfectly brilliant. Brilliant. You can see that it's losing something today.
All right, car one, start looking to your right. You'll see where the old town of Probst used to be. That little field there along the banks of Big Lost Creek. Car number 2, we're coming into Old Probst. It was a sawmill town. They had a large sawmill run by the Pendergrass Lumber Company. Car number 3, coming into the town of Probst. That sawmill was very active. They even had their own logging railroad going along the banks of Big Lost Creek. And in their heyday, they hired as many as 200 people. That was the sawmill, the cutting crews, the railroad, the offices, the company store. Pretty busy place there. Car 4 and 5, you're passing through Old Probst, Tennessee right now. But all that ended around 1925 when the federal government came knocking on their door, says, sorry folks, y'all can't cut any more trees out of here. This is now part of the Cherokee National Forest. So the Pendergrass Lumber Company dismantled their sawmill, moved it on elsewhere in the mountains of Tennessee, and moved their headquarters, moved their logging railroad, everything out. Now there were some old houses standing. Mr. Harvey can remember when there was an old house and a family living there when he started on the railroad in 1966. But it's long gone now. And the only thing there is there's a little cabin up on top of that hillside. You can only see it during the winter when all the leaves are off the trees. Now that we've passed Probst, we are back in the Cherokee National Forest. Everybody asks us what all wildlife we see. Well, we don't see a lot because that locomotive scares them. So the engineer may catch a glimpse of something from time to time, but usually by the time the train gets to whatever it was, it's gone. We do, however, occasionally see deer, wild boar, turkeys. We see our native bird of prey, the osprey, from time to time, as well as the blue herons, the cranes of the area, Canadian geese. Every now and then we see a bear.
A bear.
I was off last Saturday, but they said they had a bear sighting. So that's first in a couple, 3 years. Well, about 3 or 4 years, actually. We had one interesting bear sighting about 4 years ago. The engineer alerted us that there was a mama bear and 2 cubs running from the river up toward the tracks. Well, mama bear and 1 cub made it across the tracks perfectly fine, but the other cub didn't think he was going to make it, so he turned around and did what little bear cubs do when they panic. He climbed a tree, and he was at perfect eye level for all the passengers in the middle of that tree, just staring us down going, "Would you get out of my forest?" The day we met Boo Boo, Yogi was nowhere to be found. He was running. But bear are fairly common through here. It's just that they know the train's bigger than them. And they're actually pretty smart animals, so they generally stay off the tracks. Alright, from time to time on the left side you may see what looks like an old telephone pole. Well, actually those are the old telegraph poles. Now every depot along the line was connected by telegraph. And the station agent was responsible for telling the next station agent down the line or up the line what train was headed his way. They would know, they would telegraph out on Morse code, tap it out on Morse code. Train was northbound, they'd tell the next northbound station what train number it was. Now they knew that by the timetable. They'd also tell them how many cars that train had and exactly what time that train passed by. Now that time was very important to the next station master, because he knew if that train didn't show up in an allotted amount of time, he knew how much time, based on their speed, it would take from get from station A to station B. Well, if that train didn't show up, he knew to call the track maintenance people and get them on the way, because they were probably stopped by the same thing that stops us from time to time, a big old tree across the tracks. But if we have a tree across the tracks, don't worry. We've got 2 good steel chainsaws up there in the front of that locomotive and the nose. So as y'all walk by, the engineer will hand them out to you, and you let us know when you get the tracks cleared, okay? No such luck on my part. We'll have to clear the tracks. But the good news today is that we had a track crew out earlier, and they reported all clear all the way up to Farner and back.
Yeah.
There's the fun. There's one.
There's the pond.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Hiawasee River is also known as a good fishing river, and the primary fishing target are trout. The TWRA, our wildlife folks, they stock this river in late February, early March with 3 different types of trout. Brook trout, which are native to the river, as well as brown trout and rainbow trout. Trout love that cold water, so they stock it plentiful for a good season of trout fishing. Now, you have to have a Tennessee fishing license and a trout stamp for the Hiawasee River. Now, my son-in-law in Knoxville is an avid trout fisherman, and he loves coming down here. He'll spend all winter tying what he calls flies or lures, and he'll come down here and test them out on the trout.
There's one.
And then him and a bunch of buddies of his go out west.
Good job, Patricia. You let us know when you see another one.
Yeah, this little old lady's
I
got
have a
her
feeling
eyes
his days
peeled.
of trout
Thank you,
fishing are
thank
going to be limited soon, because my grandson is due
There's one.
in December.
Yeah.
There it is.
Wow.
Those are in good shape too.
They are.
That first one didn't have the cross T on it.
So we may very well see some trout fishermen today. However, most of them like it
There's
when the
another.
river is low.
Right there.
Now, the level of the river in this area is controlled by the Appalachia Powerhouse. During the summer months, between Memorial
There's
Day
one.
and Labor Day, they open the gates around 10 or 11 in the morning so that the river's at full flow by noon,
Amazing those are still standing.
Uh-huh.
and close them as needed based on the power needs. But before they open the gates, that's when we typically see the trout fishermen. They can literally
I'm
wade
just a
all the
rocking
way
and a
across
rolling
the
up
river
here. Y'all see this, I guess.
and literally see the trout
Yeah.
that they want to catch.
Rocking and rolling.
Most trout fishermen, though, are like my son-in-law. They're very dedicated to the cause of trout, and they catch and release, throw them back. Personally, I don't care which type of trout it is. They all taste good with a side of hush puppies and coleslaw.
Yeah. Well, there's no place to sit.
But the Appalachia Powerhouse will be our next point of interest. That powerhouse was built between 1940 and 1943. When they started construction, everybody at TVA and the government knew that war was raging in Europe, war was raging in China, and they knew America may be involved in it one day. So the threat of war had a lot to do with why this powerhouse was built, as well as where it was built. And we'll tell you all about that when we get closer to the Appalachia Powerhouse. In the meantime, enjoy all the beautiful scenery.